Dr. Julie Chancho. I am the Dean of the College of Education and the Dean of International Development at Westcliff University. So thank you for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you here. And we have a speaker today. The provost of the university, Dr. David McKinney, is going to talk about world crises, about the history of world crises, and a little bit about the COVID crisis that we're facing right now and some of the implications for that for the world. I'd like to start off by telling you a little bit about Westcliff University. We're a small private university located in Irvine, California. It's a really beautiful location. We have about 3,000 students on campus. So we have a very homey atmosphere. We really specialize in student services, and we try to have a very family environment at our university. So we're specialists in helping people to adjust to life in the US when it's their first time abroad. And we have very small class sizes. So students really get to know each other and they get to know the professors. And all of our professors teach the courses themselves. Sometimes when students go to really big universities, especially for undergraduate programs, there might be 200 students in a class. And so sometimes at the really big universities, the professors don't even teach the courses themselves. They have a teaching assistant that does the teaching for them. So in our classes, we limit the class size to 25 students so that the students really get to know the professors who are teaching the courses. And with us today, we have one of our professors, and his name is Dr. Alex Sherm. So I'll let him introduce himself for a moment. And then I'll tell you a little bit more about the university and the programs we offer.
Is it my turn, Dr. Chancho?
Mm-hmm. Yes, please, Dr. Sherman, introduce yourself.
Good evening, everyone. As Dr. Chancho introduced, I am also from Westcliff University, and my name is Dr. Alex Sherm. And I am proud to tell to all of you guys that I am the first DBA graduate from Westcliff University, and I am valedictorian graduate. In Russia, you say с красной медалью. Я закончил с красной медалью университет докторантуры. I hope you understand my broken Russian at this moment. I don't use too often at this time, no, but still I am from that area where you guys all from. Our school is a very private, a very fast growing one of the private schools in the United States. And also, as Dr. Chancho said to you all, classes are not big, limited to 25 students. However, average of students in the classroom, it's 11, 12 students, average of it. So that means we have some classes big, up to 25, some of them less than 10. So this is the more convenient to the students and to get to learn from students a lot. And we have different style of teaching. Probably, I don't know, you may be in outside Russia or not, but we have more freedom in the classroom between the professor and students. You may ask anytime if you have question to the professor, suggest your suggestion, explain your thoughts, and be having healthy argumentation in regards to learning objectives with the professors. So there is no regulations that can be you as student, you just sit down and don't say anything, just listen. No, you can listen, you can suggest, you can bring up some ideas, and that can be addressed to all of the students or to the class and be discussed among the class. This is short introduction about me, and then if you have any question, more than welcome to answer to the questions.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Sean.
For those who have just joined us, yes, because we still have people coming into our meeting room, I would just like also to introduce, my name is Oksana and Firstova, and I'm director of MSM, the education and broad company, and we are based in several countries. So we're based in Russia, we're based in Ukraine, in Czech Republic, and in Kazakhstan. And during this April month, when most of the world is staying at home, we are organizing various lectures and various online sessions for our clients and students. And today we have our partner from California, our partner from the United States, Westcliff University, which has been our partner for several years, and we do various programs. So we send students to study in California, to bachelor programs, to MBA, to masters, as well as we run double degree program in Czech Republic and in the United States. So I would also like to ask our participants whether they can hear us and whether they can see the image and whether they can see the presentation. If you can write in the chat, you have a chat in Zoom. If everyone can just say whether everything is fine and you can hear us and see us, and maybe write, yeah, everything is good, because we are getting more people and some people are writing that they might have some problems. So yeah, good. Yes, hello, Tatiana Arkadievna, I can see you, good. Maybe some of our students today can share where they are based. So where are you based right now? Because we have Julie, Dr. Chenshao, and Dr. Sherm, and Dr. McKinney. They're in California right now, in Los Angeles, where it's 8 a.m. And where are you? What cities, what countries? If you can also type us so we can get acquainted. Moscow, yeah. Kazan, we also have Kazan here. Samara, Tver, St. Petersburg, Ижевск, Kazan, Moscow, Arkhangelsk, Nizhnekamsk, Uzbekistan, so all over.
Uzbekistan, I do speak Uzbek language as well.
Good. Стрижевой, Елабуга, Волгоград, Тольятти. All over Russia. Good. So yes, while we are waiting for Dr. McKinney to connect, he's at the university right now. Maybe Julie, you can share with us what is situation with COVID-19 at your university. How are the students studying, whether they attend classes, they go to university, or whether they study online? How is everything right now in California with you?
Sure, that's a great question, Oksana. So we were one of the first universities actually in the US to go fully online. We're very fortunate in that we're very tech savvy and we have a lot of experience with that. So we always did offer all of our programs online as well as on campus, but we made a decision very early during the crisis to move everything online. So I think about 2 weeks before anybody else, we put all of our classes online and we sent all of our staff and faculty home to be safe. We just wanted to make sure that everybody was safe and doing well. So fortunately, most of the students have been doing very well online. They're still in the United States, even though they went to study on campus, but they're just waiting. We have a unique system at Westcliff where we have a new start date every 8 weeks. And so our next session is going to start in a couple of weeks. And so students are hoping that we'll be able to have classes on campus again soon. And we have, right now, we have plans A, B, and C. So plan A is to open up again, but if things are not safe, then we'll wait and keep things online for a while longer and perhaps not go back fully until the fall. There's even some universities in the US that are saying that they're going to keep all of their fall classes online too. So, yeah.
By the way, one of the teaching style Westcliff offers is synchronized online class, just like we do at this moment. So like we have here on Zoom, we teach this way also. Not every single class needs to be on campus. Therefore, we were well prepared, we knew, and it wasn't any problem for us transfer 100% online everyone, although some universities struggled in the beginning. And by the way, Oksana, I do have here, Dmitry has a question. He's raising his hand.
Okay.
Dmitry, go ahead.
Dmitry, yeah, you can type your questions if you want to in the chat. So if you have it right now.
Dmitry, can you hear us? You raise your hand. I do see here on the screen. And if you have a question, you type or talk.
Yeah, while Dmitry is typing. By the way, if we talk about online system for the students right now, so what it's like, do they get assignment and they complete them and they send to the teachers, or they have lectures and then they complete the assignment? So what is the system? Just if we compare to online education right now with COVID-19 in Russian schools and or universities in Ukrainian. So what it's like, can you just share?
It's nothing different being online or campus, nothing different in teaching, nothing different in participation, nothing different doing homework as well. So just imagine today we are in the classroom and I'm the professor. I'm giving you lecture. My teaching style is not lecture style. By the way, I do teach engagement style. While I am talking about the subject of the course learning objectives, I am engaging my students by giving them questions, they're answering. Even online here, if you notice, I said, I do have a question from Dmitry. Dmitry, what do you think about that? Let's talk. What is your plan for the future? Why would you be applying for the Westcliff University, etc.? If that is the subject, how are you staying at home at this moment? Dmitry start talking, and then I'm asking Mr. Atabayev, what do you think about that? So just Dmitry talk to us how he's staying safe at home. So what is your thought? What is your station? What is your condition? How are you taking care of this situation crazy in the world at this moment? And then Atabayev start talking to me, and then Tatiana goes, and then keep going to the discussion like we're doing, you and I and all of us. And then we do upload all the discussion question on the global academic portal, which is GAP, we call GAP, on GAP. And they do see every week's assignment, discussion question, homework. They're gonna be submitting, uploading online on computer. And also the same due dates for the discussion question and engagement with the students, replying to others, and also submitting assignments. We do have professional assignments and comprehensive learning assignments every 2 weeks. I believe Dr. McKinney is looking at us. I don't know if he can hear us. Dr. McKinney, can you hear us? I don't know. So did I answer to your question, Oksana?
Yeah, thank you. Maybe some of our participants, while we are waiting, I just want to to say that we are waiting for Dr. McKinney to connect to us. He has some problems with the sound, so he cannot hear us and get connected to start the lesson right now, the lecture. Maybe some of our participants, we have about 97 students and probably teachers listening to us. You have some questions to Dr. Chenshaw, to Dr. Shem about maybe situation in the United States right now, situation in California, in Los Angeles in particular. You're very welcome to ask the questions while we're waiting. So if you have any, Dmitry, thank you for answering. You haven't got any question. Probably you raised your hand accidentally, but maybe some of our students have. You're more than welcome, because we have some time to answer your questions while we are waiting for the IT guy to come and help Dr. McKinney.
By the way, do not hesitate to ask in Russian. If you hesitate speak in English, that's okay with us, with me.
Yeah.
And while students are sending in their questions for Dr. Sherm, I'll just tell you a little bit about the programs that we offer at the university. So we have College of Business, College of Education, and we're opening a new College of Engineering and Technology. In the college, we have bachelor's, master's, and doctorate. In the College of Education, we have bachelor's and master's. In the College of Business, that's a BBA, MBA, and DBA degrees. In the College of Education, our bachelor's is a Bachelor's of Education, which is a general pedagogy course for people who want to be teachers or administrators. And our master's is particularly for TESOL, for teaching English to speakers of other languages. And in the College of Engineering and Technology, we have computer science and information technology. In all of the colleges, we also have certificate programs, which are shorter duration programs that feed into the degree programs. So for example, in the College of Education, we have a TESOL certificate, and students can get credits if they do the certificate towards their master's program. We have very affordable tuition. Our tuition's only like around $12,000 per year, which is very reasonable for US standards. And we also have internship opportunities that allow our students to work while they're attending the university.
Dr. Chancho, would you take this question? Elvira Galimzanova asking, how do you see the future after lockdown time, especially in the sphere of education?
Yes, the Dean of Development, International Development, and Dean of College of Education of Westcliff University. We are delighted to hear your answer to this question.
Well, that's a really good question. There's so many people speculating what education is going to be like. Some people are predicting that enrollments are really going to go up because a lot of people have lost their jobs. So a lot of times historically when people have lost their jobs, they go back to school to get new skills so that maybe they can get a different job or upgrade their skills. So we're kind of expecting a lot of students to look into education. There could be a decrease, however, in international enrollments because maybe students won't be able to travel. Maybe they won't feel as comfortable traveling. So we do expect online courses to increase. And I think that that's really nice because in a lot of locations, even in Russia, for example, online education wasn't very popular even just a few years ago. And now it's becoming more and more popular. And I think because of this crisis, people are being forced to have an experience with online education. And they're learning, like Dr. Sherm said, that it's really quite similar to what we do on campus.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then we have a question from Anastasia. She is raising her hand. Anastasia, is it accident as Dmitry or you want to talk?
So just 1 minute while you're waiting for the question, let me hear. Dr. McKinney, are you able to hear us now?
Yes, I am.
Oh, great.
Awesome.
Welcome. So let me take this opportunity then to introduce our main speaker today. And Dr. McKinney, I have your PowerPoint up. Do you want me to move the slides for you or?
No, I'll move.
You'll do it? Okay, so I'll stop my share and I'll allow you to share your screen then.
Okay, thank you.
So you can just give him control, remote control.
Okay.
I mean, up to Dr. McKinney.
That's fine. Okay, I can do that. Westcliff, there we go.
Alexandra was also asking, after studying in Czech Republic, can I study in the United States? And the answer is yes, because last year we launched a new program after graduation from any school, any high school. It doesn't really matter whether you have A-level or IB. If you have Russian attestat, for example, or you have high school living certificate from any country, you can enter the first year of bachelor degree in Czech Republic. You will study in in English for 2 years. So first year you will study in Prague, the Faculty of Business Administration. The second year you will study in Prague, and for the final year you will move to Los Angeles. We will move to Westcliff University, where you finish your final year, and in 3 years' time you get 2 degrees. You get 2 bachelor degrees, which are Bachelor in Business Administration. So yes, this is a good combination of combining studying on 2 continents in 2 different countries, and get very, very, very great experience for your lifetime. Yeah, you're welcome, Alexandra. Good.
Great. So I'll take this opportunity then to introduce our main speaker today, Dr. David McKinney, who is the provost at Westcliff University, and he is going to speak about world crises, looking a little bit at the history of world crises, and then talking about the current crisis in relation to the COVID pandemic.
And I also suggest that during the lecture, if you have any questions, the participants, please, you can type them in chat, you can type them down, you can text them, and we will ask Dr. McKinney to answer them in the end of the lecture, so not to interrupt him, or maybe some of the questions might be asked during the lecture. If, for example, Julie or Alex can just tell and read the question aloud. So
yeah, at this moment I do see Anastasia had a problem with the technical issue as well, and she asking what's the percentage of international students at Westcliff University. It's a very good question, by the way, and we have students from 87 countries around the world. So therefore you can assume how many international students we have here. It is about, besides the local domestic Americans, we have more than 50%, 60% international students. Am I right, Dr. Chancho?
Yes, that's about right.
good.
Great. Dr. McKinney, we're ready for you if you would like to begin.
All right, thank you. And I apologize about the technical errors. The problem is that the computers here on campus have been going through some maintenance, and I was unaware of the maintenance and when I came, so I apologize. I do have some music. I think I love music, and I think this song by Michael Jackson, Heal the World, is really the message that I think we all share. And I'm not going to play the music now because we don't have time, but the lyrics, I think, say everything that we want to say. Okay. Anyway, welcome. Okay, now this one. It's not going. There we go. This is the outline that I was given to talk about, and so I'm prepared to do that. This is not going to represent the way we teach a class. We don't give lectures, the teachers or the professors. They lead discussions where the students are very interactive, and we have a discussion and it's back and forth. I don't know if I'm going to make it through my full presentation, but I was going to talk about, for example, restaurants and hospitals in Moscow. And I could learn from you. I have the research I've done, but that's why we have discussions, is that we learn from each other. The first question I have for the students, and if they don't respond or can't respond, I guess I'll have to answer the question. But quite simply, what is a crisis? It's not moving. Okay. And the definition is that it leads to an unstable and dangerous situation, and it's very unstable. We never know quite for sure how a crisis is going to turn out. One of the things that really is a problem right now in many countries around the world is the lack of crisis planning.
Dr. McKinney, people texting, they cannot hear you clearly. Can you please be close to microphone? Thank you.
Can you turn up the volume? Yeah. Is that better?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and again, my apologies. One of the problems throughout the world is the lack of crisis planning. There are certain countries where there's been really planning from the very beginning, going back to right after World War II. New Zealand, Finland, countries that have had pandemic planning. The United States had pandemic planning underneath its previous administration, but the current administration got rid of the Pandemic Planning Council. And so those countries that planned ahead and have had resources. One of the Scandinavian countries, which I'll talk about a little later, had resources that they have stockpiled for the last 30 years in anticipation of a pandemic such as COVID-19. Another question is, other than COVID-19, can you name another crisis that's currently happening in the world? Why? These aren't moving very quickly. It's frozen. Why is it frozen? It's frozen. Okay. No, please.
This one,
Right there.
5, 4.
5.
That's it.
Okay. No, keep going. Keep going, please. Next one. Let's take a look at some of the categories of crises first. And go back to the previous slide. It's moving by itself now. This is what happens when you work on a computer that's under maintenance, I guess.
COVID-19.
No, another one. These are the categories, different types of world crises in terms of economic, social, physical, and technological. And in terms of armed conflicts, for example, this is all the armed conflicts. Every dot on this map represents an armed conflict that's occurred during the previous year. Almost 115,000 different events, and that's down 20% from the previous year. And it had a total fatalities of 135,000. When we think of armed conflicts, we think of big numbers of people dying. The COVID-19 deaths in the United States yesterday surpassed the number of Americans, total number of Americans that were killed during the Vietnam War. So the COVID-19 and some of the other medical pandemics are much greater in terms of its impact than many of our armed conflicts, and we're going to talk about soon. These are some of the current world crises that are occurring throughout the world. Venezuela, South China Seas, Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and then the pandemic at the bottom. Let's just talk about some of the pandemics that have happened. This is a picture of a facility in Kansas in the middle of the United States, and this was the Spanish flu that killed 100 million people around the world, and this is how they were treated in the hospital. They died together in one room. And this is sort of a history of some of the pandemics going back to the very beginning of the previous millennium with the Antoine plague, the Spanish flu. There you see 100 million. AIDS pandemic. For the last 40 years, 35 million people were killed. and the swine flu, 500,000. So the medical and health-oriented pandemics have really had a significant toll throughout the world. Let's talk about some of the world economies. We had a representative for the current administration in the United States say that we are not in a financial crisis. It's a medical crisis. Well, medical crises, business crises all end up in financial crises, and we definitely have a significant financial crisis that's now happening. And another question I would have and would discuss with the students is, in terms of, can you identify a business crisis trigger, something that starts a business crisis that also starts a global crisis? And here are some of the triggers that are used to start business crises. Financial, technology, cyber crime, and this was from a recent survey. And you can see that in terms of a future concern of business crises, most businesses think cybercrime. You can see 38% think it's going to be the next major crises around the world. You do not see a healthcare crises affecting business on this list and in perception of them in the minds of most business leaders around the world. It's not really a concern, or it hadn't been for the last 5 years of business leaders, but those who were planning knew it was going to happen. In terms of the major global crises that have happened, we can go back to 1772, about 248 years ago, and there was trading going on between Britain and the American colonies. And the American colonies really didn't have any financial resources, so they were borrowing a lot of money from creditors in London. A couple banks in London went under, and the borrowers in the United States, or what was to become the United States, didn't have financial resources. So one thing led to another, and the crises then spread to Europe, back to the United States, and in Russia. It's a pretty significant crisis that lasted a couple of years. In terms of the Great Depression, about 90 years ago, it started out with the 1920s were called the Roaring Twenties, and good times and a lot of speculation. And the values of, like this phone, it may cost $50, but back in the 20s, the price would escalate, so that it would be like a couple $100 rather than $20. And pretty soon everyone realized that not only the prices were escalating, but also the values. And so people try to cash in, and they all try to cash in at the same time to get their money back and make some profit. And what happens was there was a major financial crisis that was global. It lasted for 10 years, and what ended it was the beginning of World War II, where manufacturing had to build warships and warplanes. The OPEC oil crises in 1973, this is a gas station, people lined up. The price of gasoline for the consumers, particularly in the United States, it was a artificially contrived crisis by OPEC. They did not like how the United States was favoring Israel at the time, and so to get back at the United States, they raised the price of oil quadruple. And what happened was, for a couple of years, there was little oil, little gas. I can remember going through winters without any access to heat because of the lack of the right type of gas, natural gas. That was the Asian crises. The Asian crises started with the devaluation of the currency in Thailand, and it just spread from there. Everyone was impacted by it, particularly Asia and Europe, but the United States was likewise. This was the global crisis, financial crisis of 2008, and I'm sure most of you are old enough to remember at least portions of this crisis. What happens was that it was like a pyramid scheme, and there was trading of derivatives, and the derivatives had absolutely no value, and it crashed. And a lot of people were impacted, a lot of bankruptcies occurred, and again, this is a bank and people waiting in line to withdraw their money from the bank. If you've had economics, macro and microeconomics, you understand that there's only really about $10 actual currency for every $100 that's being circulated because of the multiplier effect in money. And then the Great Recession in Russia. And what's interesting, the blue line is the RTSI exchange in Russia. The red is the S&P 500, and the yellow are the oil prices. And even though we call it the Great Recession in Russia, you can see how all these valuations really follow each other. And their trend lines, and I can go over the different letters, but I'm sure you're well aware historically these are events in Russia that cause spikes. And when you just take a look at G, where your president announced additional bailout financing, and then you can see how rather than declining that bailout financing, caused a leveling of the downfall in that was resulting from the recession. This is going to be the next major financial crisis in the world. And although there are government leaders that say, it's going to be over with in a couple months, the truth is it's going to take years for everything to recover. This is Wall Street in New York, which is really right now the financial capital of the world in terms of all the trading that goes on, but it's vacant. And the repercussions from this financial crisis that are now being made will last at least 2 to 5 years. And I'll show evidence of why I say that. Talk about a pandemic crisis in terms of social upheaval. There's a big incidence of suicides and addiction. I'll share numbers with you. And some of the side effects of COVID-19, which we really don't understand, is that 50% of the patients around the world are developing acute kidney injury. And so about 20% of them in ICU require some form of dialysis just to stay alive. When they go on a ventilator, 80% of the people that go on a ventilator to help with breathing end up dying. Let's talk about some of the history of recoveries. Another question I would share with students and ask for student input, even though you may have never heard the term a leading indicator or a lagging indicator, what do you think would be most important if you wanted to predict the future? If you lead something, others follow you. Or if you lag, you're the ones that's following a leader. So if you want to know what's going to follow you, you'd want to be a leading indicator, and that would be the correct answer. And the mortality rate that everyone talks about is really a lagging indicator. It really shows the result of everything that's going on. Testing is actually a leading indicator because it foreshadows what's to come. And this is why there's a big focus on testing. At Westcliff, in every class and in our business meetings that we have, we foster the idea that we should be using a data-driven decision-making culture for all our protocols. That's not to say that data rules the world, but and the more data you have, the more prepared you are to make a good decision. Data tell a story, and when you're an analyst, it's your role to interpret the meaning of the story and make it known to others. And this is what I'm going to try to do. in terms of, for example, loan impairment. Loan impairment are basically loans that have gone sour. They're not being repaid. And if we take a look at the dates, it goes from January 19 to January 20 in the middle, and when it gets to March and April, look what happens. These are the number of loans that go bad. This is why banks are really concerned about credit ratings. And I think it was in 2008 that Fair Isaac Corporation made an arrangement with an association in Russia to monitor and establish credit ratings for consumers. And let's just take a look at what happens. If you are in the top group here, it was called FICO 1, you have a high credit rating, it's fairly stable. But even those that are stable, once it gets to April, there's going to be a percentage that's going to increase and have bad loans, even at the highest rating. And if we go down the line to FICO 2 and then FICO 3 and FICO 4, the average impairment or impaired loans get worse, and the impact from a crisis becomes bigger. And finally, when you're in FICO 5 or the lowest, you can see how significant and volatile the results are. So that's why credit ratings are relatively important, and why banks and creditors look at it. This is world gross domestic product growth for about a 20-year period, and try to show what's happening between the developing countries and the developed countries. Let's take a look at the global crises that we talked about in 2008. Both the developing countries and the developed countries moved in the same direction. And really both the blue lines and the red lines, with the exception of where the Asian crises and the ruble crisis in '98 happened, follow the same pattern. And we could spend hours just talking about this one chart. In terms of unemployment rates, I'm talking about a lot of topics, and each topic is really, hours of conversation, and this is why we have discussions going back and forth between the professor and the students. But the unemployment rate was 27% across what was called the EU 28. That's the European Union. There were 28 countries. Right now it's 27 countries plus the United Kingdom. But it took 10 years for that the European Union countries to recover. And each country is a little bit different, but on the average it took 10 years just from that financial crisis. The U.S. employment rate fell a little faster and deeper because we have more flexible labor rules, but it took us in the United States about 5 to 6 years to recover, and the European Union started to recover and didn't really return to pre-crisis level until 2016, which was 8 years after the crisis actually happened. So the financial impact from a pandemic is significant and will continue to be significant. So another question I would have of students and would end up to a discussion is, why should we study history, such as a financial crisis or a healthcare pandemic? And I think a number of our leaders probably, if they did read history, have not remembered it or have forgotten the lessons that they could have learned from the pandemics. In terms of crisis management, if you fail to prepare, you're preparing to fail. And that's really the message that, and let's talk about what history could teach us and whether or not our current leaders really learned from the past. And as soon as my technician left, it's freezing again. Victor?
Dr. McKinney, why don't you take this opportunity to take some questions from the audience?
Yeah,
I think that they would like to engage and to engage with you.
Okay,
And
great. I was told that they wouldn't be able to do that, but if that's possible.
yeah, I
would-
think that that would be great. And Dr. Sherm can help to moderate, so he can see the questions and he can read them to you, and then you could answer. I think that would be nice to give
Okay,
them.
and I would like to learn from the students too.
Sure.
In terms of Moscow, I have, you know, the pandemic has really impacted large metropolitan areas. In Russia, that would be Moscow and St. Petersburg. And I understand that the number of hospitals in the Moscow area was halved due to reforms that were enacted, and they lost about 50% of their hospitals, and they recently built 16 hospitals. But I would like to know, in terms of the new hospitals, whether or not they're able to manage. We can't manage what's going on in the United States right now because we're ill-prepared to have surpluses of medicine and supplies. But I would like to hear some comments what's going on in healthcare in Moscow to make sure. I can read about it, but your experience it, like restaurants, the small grocery stores, they've lost 50% of their walk-in traffic, and the hypermarkets have lost 60 to 75% of the traffic. So a lot of people are buying groceries. I read online, but the grocers aren't prepared to deliver those orders. So once you make an order, I read again in Moscow, it takes 2 to 3 weeks to get the food. Is that true? So I can learn from you as much as you can learn from me. And that's why we have discussions rather than lectures. But I'm ready to take some questions, please.
Dr. McKinney, they are, by the Russian culture, they hesitate to ask right away, probably. I have here on chat room, they're interested, how is difficult studying in America? What is the difference between American education and other education? Would you please give some understanding to the students?
Okay, there's a difference the way it's taught, and even in the United States, there's some vast differences. There are maybe 100 students online, I guess, right now, or whatever the number might be. If 100 students signed up for a class at Westcliff, we would have no more than 20 or 25 in a class. And we'd have 4 sessions. We would not put 100 students in a classroom. There are schools in the United States that have up to 500, particularly the larger schools, where they have 400, 500 in one class. That's unworkable, it's untenable. There's a thing, and I don't know if you've heard about it, the MOOCs. And the MOOCs is an online program that's sponsored by Coursera and some others. And I attended them just one. There were 98,000 people taking this one course at one time. The professor would give a lecture that lasted 2 to 3 minutes, and he was gone. And it was a videotaped conference. His tech TAs didn't take any questions. I had no personal contact, and I dropped out of the course because I thought it was worthless, and 98% of the students did. We believe that at Westcliff that we try to create an intimate atmosphere. I sometimes argue that the online classes, for example, are more intimate than an actual classroom, because as a student, you're inviting the professor into your kitchen, and you have more one-on-one conversations because of the size of the class. We could easily have larger classes, but we believe, as a matter of philosophy, that it's not the way we want to teach.
Dr. McKinney, I do have comments and question also. And comments to answer to your question. Aleb Greenkin said, my family and I have ordered delivery from hypermarket. Usually it takes about a week to get your products, but if you are lucky, you can get your order early. So I wouldn't say it takes more than half a week.
Okay, all right, thank you. You can see what happens in terms of some of the news gets exaggerated. So
So one more question from Elizabeth Solovyova. Can we assume that COVID-19 affected US more than other countries because of free market?
Oh, no, it has nothing to do with the free market. It has to do with the lack of planning. I have a couple slides showing how, for example, in Scandinavia, Finland, Denmark, and the other countries, except Sweden, had lower rates of mortality and cases. Why? Because the leader in Sweden is a male who's very aggressive and did not believe that there was going to be a pandemic. And so he kept everything loose. And he naturally had high rates of cases and deaths. New Zealand just identified, I think either yesterday or the day before, that they are 0 cases being incurred of COVID-19. And yet the leader of New Zealand, who's a woman, said, let's keep it going for another 2 weeks before we open anything.
Go ahead.
So in terms of free market, I don't believe it results from a free market in terms of the differences. I believe it relates to the leaders of those nations and whether or not they believe in planning. We have a leader in the United States that does not now believe.
Go ahead.
I have one more question, Dr. McKinney. Aida Malikova asking, how do you think how long it will take for the world economy to recover from this pandemic?
A minimum of 2 years and probably 5 to 6 years in some countries that are really hit hard. Some countries, for example, Italy and Spain rely a great deal on tourism in their economy. And those countries are going to be really hit hard because of the lack of tourists. In the United States, in terms of the airline industry, most all flights are being canceled. They're consolidating, and you're lucky if you have 5 people on a flight that does go through. I heard a conversation this morning that it's anticipated that it's going to take at least 2 years in the United States for the airline industries to recover, going back to full ridership that they had pre-crises. So I can keep talking about that, but let's move on with some other questions.
Oksana, did you want to ask some question, or do you?
No, I was just, I wanted to read the question that I see, but Dr. Sherm has already done it, so yeah.
Anyone else with a question? Okay. It's frozen. Okay. This is Taiwan, and Taiwan, at the very beginning, when they found out what was going on, they have crews like this. This is going back to early January, where they were sterilizing the streets with crews. Well planned, and they had a low rate. And, you know, this is very similar to one of the questions I got from students. Will all economies react in the same manner to a pandemic disease like COVID-10? And the answer is definitely not. And why? Well, let's just take a look at, before I get to answering the question, the difference between like mainland China and Iran. Do you see as it goes up, there's like a little bump, and then it goes up higher? This is what we anticipate is going to happen to some of the states in the United States right now that have high rates of cases and mortality, but they're opening up restaurants and movie theaters and barber shops. We expect that bump going down for a couple weeks and then spiking up in terms of reoccurrence. Some places are faring a lot better than others. You can see how high Italy is, UK, United States is somewhere in the middle, and where you have South Korea, Iceland, Taiwan, the rates are exceptionally low. 3/100ths deaths per 100,000 in Taiwan. Exceptionally well prepared. And again, this is shows the countries that rely on tourism, and they're going to be hit hard. And it's going to take a while for a tourist to say, do I really want to go? I'd love to go to China. I've been there a number of times, both as on business and as a tourist, but it's going to take me a while to be mentally prepared to do that again in the near future. The lack of decisive leadership without a focus on the people of their nation, but rather on personal priorities, is really what I think distinguishes how countries have responded to the COVID-19 problem. Japan, for example, good leader, but they feared what the impact would be on the Summer Olympic Games if they said we were having all these numbers. So they purposely kept the numbers low. And then when they suddenly had a sudden spike in deaths in Tokyo with understaffed hospitals, everyone became aware of what's happening. So Abe, the leader, his slow response has resulted in much criticism, even from his own supporters. In the United States, we have a major election coming up in November. The previous administration established a pandemic council going back that was established in 2014 and 15 because Obama predicted there would be a major pandemic. He did that in December of 2014, and he said in 5 years from today, we'll probably have a pandemic, or shortly thereafter. In December 2019, the pandemic happened just like was predicted. But the planning council was disbanded by the current administration in 2018, and all the preparation work was thrown out the window. In terms of unemployment claims, we're up to 26 million people have made unemployment claims within 5 weeks, or 16% of the nation's workforce. We're projecting about 25% is going to be our unemployment rate fairly soon. That is equivalent to the unemployment rate that occurred during the Great Depression in the early 30s. It's significant. For every diagnosis of COVID-19 in the United States, 35 people lose jobs or they're furloughed. That's significant. And then we have countries that President Ortega in Nicaragua hasn't been seen in weeks. His vice president, his wife, has told everyone's fine. Well, he probably has COVID and they don't want to admit it. There are countries that are really poor, like South Sudan, and they only have 4 ventilators in the entire nation. There's no way they can keep their people healthy. Again, the leader of Sweden, they no forced closures, no lockdowns, and he wasn't convinced the policies worked. And half of all the deaths in Sweden have occurred in homes for the elderly. I'm just going to go through this relatively quick till I get to the slides. Oksana, how much time do I have to keep talking? How do I go backwards? It's not going backwards.
Anna, you're muted.
Oksana, you muted.
I'm sorry. Yes, it's fine, Dr. McKinney. You can go for about 15 minutes, and if you need more, 15 to 20, and we have some time for the questions.
Okay. Keep going. I'm going to be talking about recovery models pretty soon in terms of different ways to recover. Why isn't it working? This is there are different types, that's fine, different types of recoveries, and as with most aspects of economics, we can graph and show what type of curve is going by itself. And there's a V curve, there's a W curve, there's an L-shaped curve. Victor, what are you doing? Okay. And this is called the swoosh curve. The swoosh being the Nike sign. And this is probably the most probable curve. You can see it starts in 2020, and it's projected it's going to take a minimum of 2 years in the United States in terms of real GDP before it even returns to previous levels. And it's estimated that, and this is projected for the UK and Europe, but it's very similar to the projections in the United States. At least 2 to 5 years in terms of recovery. Okay. This is not, move on. Rensselaer. Why is it, let's talk about, you can stop it, please.
Stop.
Yeah, just stop it. No. Just stop it moving. In terms of the COVID recession, I call it diseases of despair. And whenever you have a problem or a pandemic, there's suicides, there's high death rates from alcoholism, addiction, and that's what's going to happen. And we're going to have a lot of deaths, and you can even program it. And I've got some formulas in terms of for every 1% increase in unemployment rate in the United States, we expect 775 deaths. In terms of we're going to our GDP in the United States is supposedly going to decrease by at least 6% on the average for the entire year, which is not that significant, but it's going to have a lot of repercussions. In terms of testing and contact tracing, I'm assuming that the students know what contact tracing that is, and it's where I am in a situation and I develop COVID, and they're going to come to me and say, who have you talked to in the last 2 weeks? And I'm going to have to say, I talked to Victor. That's contact tracing. And what they're trying to do is set up a system, and it's going to take like 200, 300,000 people to do contact tracing for all those who contract the COVID-19 disease. There's a company, and I've got a slide on it, called Blue Dot. And those who are interested, I recommend that it's a Canadian firm, and they actually predicted 6 months in advance the Zika disease, the mosquito transfer. They said exactly where it was going to be. In August of last year, they announced to their clients, Blue Dot, that they had identified that there's going to be a major viral epidemic, perhaps a pandemic, that's going to originate in Wuhan, China. They knew exactly where it was going to start from, and it was going to go global and have a significance. How do they do that? They combine digital analyses. They traced animals. They had veterinarians on their staff. They traced airplanes. They found out in Wuhan, 800,000 people leave the city every day, and they go to global cities around the world. That's how it happens, because Wuhan was a major center, major commerce center. And you'll find that Blue Dot is really going to set an example for how important data are, with data in terms of predictive analytics. I know in Russia now they're doing it in terms of tracing population movement. This is how Blue Dot did it. And it's a lot of countries seems oppressive, but it's actually going to be good in terms of knowing movements of population, and contact tracing is going to be done by data. The question is privacy invasion and those things, which are questions in the future.
Dr. McKinney, is that similar to South Korea does, tracing the contacts?
Yes, very similar. But Blue Dot is the one country in the world that's doing it so much better than anyone else. And the whole theory was that he wanted an eclectic group of people on his original staff, of his business. And he brought in, like I say, veterinarians to talk about animals and animal diseases. He had airplanes and airline specialists. He had population movements, demographic analysts, and literally about 50 people, each one in a different discipline. And they put all their data together, and this is what came out is phenomenal. And I think it's going to be a wave of the future. And it also shows the importance of information technology and computer science when you combine it with other fields. By itself, a number doesn't mean anything, but once you start combining it with like supply chain management and where are all these products going? Why is there such a problem with logistics in the world right now in terms of healthcare? And why can't we supply common things like a swab and get it going? And so that could have been identified by a company such as Blue Dot. So companies that do that in the future, if I were young, I would really be excited about starting a company like Blue Dot, because I think it's going to be the future.
Dr. McKinney, one more question from Aida Malikova. How do you think what was the main mistake made in the fight against COVID-19?
Not taking it seriously initially. Like I say, Blue Dot identified it in August, and nobody took them seriously. In December, there were predictions by Bill Gates what was going to happen in terms of pandemic. He had a TED Talk, and he predicted a major pandemic. What's going on?
So the host can show it.
Okay, in a major pandemic. President Obama predicted the pandemic. And once the pandemic came, people didn't believe it. Our president of the United States called it a hoax up until February, perpetuated by his opposition to make him look bad. It wasn't taken seriously, and right now, on the news, there are people walking around with signs that COVID-19 is a hoax, and they still believe it. So I think not taking it seriously and understanding its impact, I think that's the biggest mistake people have made around the world. I've got a couple of slides here showing there's 7 women that lead countries in terms of New Zealand, Finland, and the others. And they also, and I don't want to stereotype people, but they have a great deal of empathy for people. The leader of Sweden had no empathy. Our leader has no empathy for people. So when you combine decisive action, taking things seriously, planning, and empathy, you have a good leader. And it's the leadership qualities that have really caused
Yeah, one more question from Dennis, and he's asking, when will be this pandemic end?
When will it end?
When will be ending this pandemic, yes?
When we have a vaccine. There's a thing called herd immunity, and that's when you have about 70% of the population that's previously been infected. There's one country that said, I'm not going to do anything, I'm just going to let people die until we have a herd immunity. Obviously, he wasn't taken seriously, but he was serious about his proposal. A vaccine, it was developed, and it could take up to 18 to 24 months to develop a vaccine. That's going to be what turns it off. We are expecting in the United States to have the current cycle of the disease slow down, but we're expecting come September, October, November, it to spike up again. And so I think those who are watching the disease understand that it's going to go through waves. And the only way we're going to really respond to it is by having people vaccinated. In South Korea, they did testing and came up with the conclusion that even though you may have previously had COVID-19 infection, you can be reinfected. A lot of people believe that once you're infected, you can't get it again, which has not been proven to be true.
There is one more question also addressed to Dr. McKinney. how do you think, what were the main mistakes made in the fight against COVID-19?
Oh, he answered that question.
Oh, he did. Sorry for
Yes,
that.
it's all right.
I just saw a question, do I think that COVID-19 was a biological weapon originated? I think that's a conspiracy theory. I don't think that that's the case at all, but I do believe it's a conspiracy theory.
So we have one more question from Anya. Do you believe that COVID-19 is biological weapon that originally was made by China to ruin the economy of other countries?
No, I don't believe that. I don't believe that. I can say in the previous comments, that's a conspiracy theory, and a lot of people believe in conspiracy theories. I don't. If it were a biological weapon that would have been taken to another country in China, why did so many people in China die? It doesn't make sense if they were trying to fight another country. It's illogical. Anyone else?
No more questions so far.
My wife manages a assisted living facility, and it's exceptionally stressful. Keeping the families away from the residents and talking through glass windows from the building. It's hard to tell families you can't talk to your loved one. And to have loved ones die and not be able to say goodbye to them is even more difficult. So there's a lot of pressure on families and people right now, and that's why I believe in Michael Jackson's song, To Heal the World. I think that we have love for each other, and it's bringing us closer together. And if anything, the COVID-19 is teaching us that we're all equal. It takes, it doesn't matter how much money you have or what position you have. You're as much liable to get COVID-19 as anyone in the world. Yes, there are countries like South Sudan, those who live in poverty are more likely to get it than those who are more fortunate. But even like actors like Tom Hanks gets COVID-19.
Dr. McKinney, one more question from Nata Tubalova. Dear Dr. McKinney, how do you think this pandemic changed approach to the education? We will turn to online education more? Thank you.
Well, I believed in online education. I've been teaching online and working with schools that have taught online since the mid-90s. I was at University of Illinois with my wife, first wife, that learned how to use the internet in 1974 because the internet was developed on a Department of Defense contract. So I believe in the internet. I think there's going to be a movement toward online education, and more people are going to accept it because they've had experience of it. But I don't think it's going to be a revolution toward online. Basically because a lot of people believe in traditional education and don't like to accept the future or accept change. I think that online education is definitely the future and it's the present. I believe in it. I believe it can be more intimate, like I said, than being in the classroom and not being able to talk to the professor or having a conversation. I can keep talking about this because it's an issue that I feel very close to.
I have one more question from Anastasia. Coming back to Westcliff University, how can you explain a very reasonable tuition for the studies at the university?
I didn't understand the question, please.
She's asking about tuition. Is it reasonable or not?
Oh, I think so. I think we're exceptionally competitive. We're definitely going to have students on campus this fall. And I think the tuition rates, if you take a look and compare them, and I'm sure that our representative, Dr. Chancho and others will be more than happy to share comparisons of our tuition with other schools.
I have one more question from Yaroslav. I'm not sure it's to you. Will students from Russia be able to go to study in America for 1 year starting from August 1st of this year, according to the situation with the coronavirus? Thank you.
Okay, in terms of starting to work in August?
Coming to the US from August.
That will have to depend a lot on our visa program. I think the visa program will definitely be opened up. There would be pressure to open up the visas of people coming. If we're opening up hair salons and bowling alleys in Texas, certainly we can open up the visas, and there'll be pressure to do that.
I have a question from Polina Skuba. Hello. How long it will last? What do you think, sir? It is terrible that we can live our best lives.
How long will the COVID-19 last? Is that the?
Yes, yes.
Again, if we had a vaccine now, it'd be over with. I grew up in an era where a lot of people had communicable diseases like polio and everything else, and we responded. Measles has been a big issue in the United States because we had a vaccine and we also developed herd immunity. But a lot of families don't believe in vaccinations, even though they're really saving a lot of people from death. So I personally believe in vaccinations. I think it's science, and I don't believe the world is flat, and I believe in medicine and science, and so therefore I support vaccinations, and it's going to save us from COVID-19.
Okay, this is one more question from Zlata. What do you think, can this virus transform into more dangerous form? Thank you.
I didn't understand.
So do you think this virus can be transformed to the more dangerous form?
Possibly, whatever that might be. Again, in terms of, I assume that means biological warfare. Yes, I don't believe. If we get a vaccination, it won't matter.
There is one more question, which I find interesting, from Anya. Do you think that COVID-19 has any positive effect on people or not?
Yes, I do. I think it's bringing families closer together. I think love has become more important, and really the importance of what life is all about. And life is about each other. It's brought the world closer together. And again, that's why I go back to Michael Jackson's song, Heal the World, that we all have the same thoughts. We're all people. I feel very close to that question, because I believe that I would love to see us become one family in the world, bringing everyone closer together. And I think that's the direction that we're going in, hopefully. And COVID-19 has the impact of doing that. It may hurt us, and we encounter a little pain, but if we keep the attitude that you're important to me, no matter who you are. When I hear stories about people sharing gifts with each other, and they don't even know who they are, but the nursing homes, the retirement facilities, and bringing gifts and food. I've seen lines from around the world of people waiting in line to get handouts from other people. This is the good of COVID-19, and it shows that we really do care about each other, and hopefully we don't forget.
Dr. McKinney, one more question from Konstantin. He's asking, what do you think if this situation will be affecting education and will collapse this year, education system?
No, at Westcliff, we didn't lose a beat. We had both online and on-campus classes, but we easily transferred to online. It took us a couple days to organize everything, but it had no impact. If in fact there are some schools that still they shut down because they didn't know what to do or how to do it. Regardless of all the problems we've had today, and it's because I came to the campus and they were in the middle of fixing the computers. Technology does work, and there's going to be online education, there's going to be on-campus education. That's why we mix the two. But I can, again, keep talking about that subject. But thank you, Anna.
I have commented, Anastasia commented, this session and great lecture from Dr. McKinney is one of the good professor of the positive effects of the COVID-19.
I wanted to just jump in really quick and let everybody know that since we have transitioned everything to 100% online, we are also offering a 25% scholarship for students who want to start studying online at Westcliff University. This is part of our response to the crisis around the world and trying to help students to maintain normalcy in their lives and be able to continue their studies.
By the way, I was getting private questions also about the English language, and we do have a sister school here. We prepare them for getting the TOEFLs, enough level of TOEFLs to be attending to the school, to our university also. We do teach English also.
Yes, we just developed an online intensive English program that we're going to be launching very soon. So soon students will be able to study intensive English with us online before they come to campus. And later we'll also have the program available on campus.
And I would also like to add, Julie, about TOEFL. Several weeks ago, just 2 or 3 weeks ago, ETS has announced a special TOEFL IBT home edition. So right now, in any part of the world, and in Russia as well, in Ukraine, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, you can take TOEFL IBT at home. And we can help you to register for the test and to administer the test. So right now, when all IELTS and face-to-face TOEFL test centers are closed worldwide, there is a special TOEFL IBT home edition, which is just a wonderful opportunity for all the students not to miss the time and to take the test and to apply to the university anywhere in the world, just to start the studies online when COVID is over. So just for you to know, we can help with that and give more information if you're interested.
Sure. Also, Westcliff has its own online English proficiency exam that we allow students to take free of charge if they come through MSM and apply to Westcliff through MSM. So you can take the test without paying anything.
Dr. McKinney, I have one comment. I do admire you, Dr. McKinney. You are the humanitarian. Since the first mentioning of MJ, Michael Jackson, I'm assuming, your message is clear. Thank you for your lecture.
Well, I don't, like I say, I don't enjoy lecturing. I enjoy talking and discussing. And I value your experiences as well as experiences of anyone. And, you know, like the comment about the hypermarkets, I appreciate that. I learned something from that student in terms of their experience. And this is the benefit of having a discussion rather than a lecture. And this is what you find in every classroom at Westcliff, whether it's online or in the class on campus, is a back and forth, a learning by everyone.
Thank you very much. If some of the students have some more questions, maybe Dr. McKinney or Dr. Chansho or Dr. Shem have some questions for our Russian-speaking students, you're welcome to ask them.
I did get one question. I just want to address to everyone. As you notice, I am also from post-Soviet Union countries. I was born, raised there, and I learned my first English in England, and I moved to the United States after a while. So they were asking me, how did you learn English? How long took you? And I answered, I said, I'm still learning English. So, and they're asking, is it easy? It's easy to learn English, to get good program, right program in the right community. While you live with that foreign language speakers and you're going to be communicate with them, engage with them all the time, that is going to help you to learn more and more and more every day, every time.
Thank you. Good advice.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I'd be happy to address them.
Dr. McKinney, do you have a question for the students?
Yes, in terms of your education, what do you want to achieve with your education? What do you want to become? And then this is really a personal question for each one of them. Can someone just identify what their goals are? In the United States, the average person, and this is the average person, will have 5 different careers and 15 unrelated jobs in their lifetime, which means that as you grow and as you grow older, you're going to change. You're going to change your ideas and your directions. And I truly believe at one time, I started in architecture, but prior to that time, in high school and grammar school, I wanted to become the first architect to design and develop buildings on the moon. There are schools now that are designing buildings that are going to be used for habitat on Mars, and I really envy them. It's just, that was my personal hope. But I hope and I pray that you understand the importance of being a human being. And sometimes we lose scope of that in terms of the importance of it. Whatever you do, your value system has got to be related to ethics, morality, and treating each other with respect, whatever business you go into. But if someone would like to explain to me how what they have decided to go into and why and what they would like to achieve from it, I'd love to learn about it.
I have some comments to you, Dr. McKinney. Dr. McKinney, your comment is fascinating and your lesson might be the best. That was cool experience.
Thank you ever so much. I appreciate it.
Dr. Sherm, would you like to read Dr. Siganoff? She just sent a message and maybe you can explain who she is.
Dr. Siganoff is the Associate Dean for the College of Business. She said, find your passion and let the light of education guide you toward the goal of the living it daily. If your work is your passion, it truly isn't work. This is from Dr. Siganoff.
This is a nice comment and nice addition. Very valuable.
Dr. Siganoff is from England. We have not only a great number of American professors, but also from around the world. We have students from like 85 different countries. So not only would you get exposed to American students, but literally the world. Our objective is to have students from 195 countries, which represents the entire world. But that's the direction we're moving in. Going back to Blue Dot succeeded because they had a diversity of people on their team. And it's been proven by research and by science that when you have a diversity on a team, on a group, that group has more experiences to grow from, and so they have better, stronger solutions.
There are some answers to your question, Dr. McKinney. The first one is from Zlatan. I'd want to learn as many languages as possible at the good level, of course.
I think that's excellent. And one of the, when I go to Europe and I see people that know 7 different languages, because they have to, because there's all the different countries that are relatively small, but they speak a different language. That's impressive. And when you speak so many languages, you can better relate. But I've known that also, even if you don't know the same language, there's ways to relate with people. And in terms of feeling and understanding what they're trying to say. My wife is from the Philippines, and I cannot learn Tagalog that well, but by the way she talks, I've learned that her feelings are expressed, and I can almost tell what she's saying by the way she says it. And I don't know if that makes any sense, but That's one way I've learned the language is by the way people express themselves in terms of getting upset or being very happy and understanding.
So I do have one answer to you, Dr. McKinney, from Aleb Greenkin. I personally want to work in the hospitality sphere, as in my option, it will always be used in the world. Also, I have always wanted to work in the creative area, as the process for me is more enjoyable than working at the computer all day. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that comment. I personally believe that everybody is creative, and we can teach you how to be creative. We know how the mind works. I thought, when I grew up, I was a little artistic. My parents said I had a special gift, but I now know that everybody can be creative just by learning how an artist thinks. So if you want to be a successful business person, I tell students to learn and act and think like an artist in terms of that creativity. And so this is what
I have one more comment from Dr. Siganov. She said, that's the language of love, Dr. McKinney. And that language is what will bring us through COVID-19 as a family.
And I agree with that.
And I have one more answer to your question, or question to you from Zlata. What do you think can the work of interpreters to replace by the machines in the future? So can be translators, interpreters, can be replaced by machines.
Yeah, interpreters, huh? Interpreters, translators.
Translators.
Yeah.
I have a little device about 2 inches tall. It's got 42 languages on it, and you can talk into it for Russian. I can listen to it, and I can then say something, and then it will speak to you in Russian. That's a little technological device. Translation is really good, and we need it. But I'm just saying that I have a friend, and this is going to show how old I am. But I have a friend, his name is Marty Cooper. And Marty Cooper went to the same school I did. And he came up with a device, an idea that he worked on for Motorola. And he's impacted every person on the planet with his one idea. And this is the strength of a student, that one person can impact everyone in the world. And the device he came up with and invented was the cell phone, Marty Cooper, in the early 70s. His idea for the next evolution of cell phones is a microchip, and the microchip will be in your forehead. And he says we now have the technology to do it. And if I wanted to talk to my son and Scott, all I'd have to do is close my eyes, think, Scotty, I want to talk to you. He'd intercept my brainwave in Washington, 3,000 miles away, and start talking to me in brainwaves. That sounds crazy, but we now know how to do it, and that's the future.
I do have a comment from Dr. Siganov to the same question. Possibly, but a translator can pick up nuance that machine can't.
Oh, yes. Yes, definitely.
I would also like to add, because I have my first degree in linguistics, so I studied foreign languages. And this is the main question when my students ask me who want to go and study abroad. Oksana, would you advise us to learn foreign languages or to get a degree in linguistics? And I absolutely agree with Dr. Siganov that, for example, if we talk about translating literature pieces like poems or any novels, it's impossible to translate literature with the help of machine. It's only the human being that can do it on the very good level. So an example is translating literature into other languages.
I agree with that. I really do.
Yeah. One more question from Zlata. What professions might be mostly in demand in the future?
I had a couple of slides on what the future will be. It's hard telling what the future is going to be because it changes so quickly. But right now, in terms of robotics, information technology, linguistics, as we become closer as a group, as a family worldwide, and the importance of languages between the peoples in the world. But moving in that direction, I think information technology and data and business, I consider myself an entrepreneur. I've developed over 60 different businesses. And it's my way of being creative. I know who I am. I'm good at coming up with ideas, and I like to make those ideas happen. But once they happen, and you do the same thing every day, that's what I'm not good as being a manager. I'm good at being a creator. So,
Dr. McKinney, one more question from Konstantin, and he's asking, somewhere in 2025, everything will be remotely.
I don't know about everything. I think that, they've been predicting working at home remotely for the last 10 or 15 years. I think a lot of people will be going back to the office basically because the walls have started to close in on them mentally. It takes a while to be with a family with 3 kids and a wife or a husband and work in a very close space. We need different spaces and different environments. Can you do that remotely? Definitely. And I personally, I live 2 hours away from campus. And so I spend a lot of time commuting in a car. I wish I didn't have to. So yes, remote offices will probably be more so in the future than now, but it's not going to totally replace coming together as a group.
I agree with you, Dr. McKinney. I just want to comment of my own comment, if I may. For example, technology is growing every day. That doesn't mean population is not growing or needs are not growing. For example, let's take simple post office. We did have only post office in the beginning, even we didn't have it. And then post office came to the service. And then we have different type of services, express, FedEx, whatever, but that does not make less work post office. Everybody has own job because needs are getting greater and greater every day from everyone. And also, if you remember, recently we had a meeting in international conference last year between the Elon Musk and Jack Ma. Elon Musk was saying how his technology is growing in creative and more smarter than human being. And Jack Ma was saying it's not. And then Elon Musk going continuously providing his opinion and his justification in that regard. And Jack Ma said in couple 2 words, I said, I never heard that computers created human being, but I know that human being created the computers. So therefore, even though we're creating something new, behind that stands human being. Still, we're gonna have work. And back to the remotely working, it's something gonna be, it's not new for us. We will be this working from home or in distance long time already, but it's gonna be more expand, but it doesn't mean someone gonna lose the job and that's gonna be transferred 100% in remote. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
There are incidences where science has combined technology with human cells. And they develop like a little worm that's about the size of a hair, and it's got legs, and it's both machine and human cells. That's scary, but we're on the road to making combinations like that. I don't know what the future of that's going to be, but there are a lot of possibilities.
We have one more question from Pavel. I don't think it's question to us directly. When the US opens to foreign visitors, do you think foreigners will need to present some sort of proof that they are COVID-free, or will they be tested at the point of entry? Thank you.
Yeah, I think, even in our school, we may have a radar gun that takes temperatures of those coming and going. I think that's part of the future right now, at least in the foreseeable future, until we get a vaccine in terms of temperature taking. There are going to be situations like that. I know certain, like nursing homes are asking for affidavits. Where have you been and that type of thing. But you know, a lot of carriers are asymptomatic. There's no way of really knowing who's infected because they show no symptoms, no temperature. So we really don't understand COVID-19 that great right now.
I do have one more comment from Dr. Seganov, and I love this comment actually, regarding to the remote. Homes will be built with the home offices, and telecoms will have improved your services. And by the way, this is for Americans, it's not news. Most of the houses built with the home offices here. So that's gonna be probably in the globe everywhere.
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
Okay, I would like to thank, first of all, Dr. McKinney for your time and for your wonderful lecture, which was, of course, again, talking about good or positive things about COVID-19. Thanks to this situation, we can afford having a lecture with the provost of one of the best universities in California to our students who are connected from Russia, from Ukraine, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan right now, and to have an opportunity to not only to listen to you, but also to talk to you and ask you questions. And thank you very much. This is very valuable, and I think it's a good experience for our students because most of them are high school pupils right now, and they're thinking about choosing their career path. That's why they asked you questions about choosing their future career, what to study, what you advise to study, and just to discuss with you their points of view. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you. One more comment in terms of what COVID-19 has done. And I wish there was some aspect that is really helping to change that would stay. In the United Nations, Emmanuel Macron from France, the leader of France, has gotten 4 out of 5 countries on the Security Council to agree to a truce of all wars in the world until COVID-19 goes away. That's significant. Whether it's going to really happen and they need 100% concurrence from all countries, but when people start talking, because of this illness, let's not kill each other. COVID-19 is taking its place in terms of, again, attitudes toward other people. That's only one incident, again, of out of lemons comes lemonade. And there's some sweetness to it. And that is one of the sweet aspects of the disease.
Thank you.
Okay. And thank you very much, Oksana, and your agency and group for putting this all together. Anytime I can meet with people from other countries and have other ideas, I only wish I had a better opportunity to talk to all the students and really learn who they are and learn of their ideas, because they're the future of the world. And what we're going to be in the future is based on who they are. Before I go on my pathway to wherever I'm going to end up at the end, I want to maximize my opportunities to meet people like the students and know what the world's going to be.
Yeah, thank you very much. I want to thank the students as well for participation, because in these difficult times of studying online 24/7 almost, being in front of the computer, they still are spending their free time listening to the lecture and having a chat with us. So thank you very much, all the participants who decided to join the lecture today. Thank you.
And I likewise would like to say thank you to the students. I respect, your choice. And I can send to you my email address, but no matter where you go to school, if you're curious about how I would respond to a question, I would enjoy the opportunity to answer those questions and to address them. And maybe through Oksana, you can share my email address should they ever want to
Sure.
talk or have me respond to any of their ideas.
Thank you. When it's all over, we would love to welcome you to all our offices and locations in Russia, Ukraine, Kazakhstan, and Czech Republic. And of course, Dr. Chensho, who has been visiting us already, and Dr. Sherm, you're more than welcome to come and talk to the students directly. So you're very welcome.
Thank you so much.
I thank you for that invitation, and hopefully someday I may be able to take advantage of it. But I do look forward to it.
Thank you. So in case anyone has any questions, we can just answer them. You can write them in the chat. In case you don't have any questions, thank you very much. So you can leave the conference and the lecture and enjoy your evening in Russia and enjoy your full day ahead of you in California, right? What time is it right now?
9:50.
9:50 a.m.
Good night to everyone.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, and
Roxana, thank you so much again.
Stay well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
and be
Bye-bye.
healthy and stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. McKinney. Thank you.